Good evening. Well, good evening, Gary. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Bob.
Have you been on the task, the group?
I've not. I've been as a legislative chair for.
Pardon? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
No, I'm not in the committee. I'm sitting in the listener, a legislative chair of public.
Well, good. Thank you very much for joining us. Okay, this evening, as we all know, we're on Zoom because of COVID. So we're just gonna have to work with that and go from there. Unfortunately, be questionable if we ever do have a meeting, in-person meeting before the end of this process. We have talked about if there's questions, comments, or additional material to please submit them into Matt. Matt, I don't think you received anything additional.
The only stuff I received was the presentation from Julie, and I forwarded that on, and I think it came out with at least a Zoom invite.
Yes, it did. And everybody, I assume, received that. Are there any comments at this time that anybody on the committee would like to make about the process or things we've heard in the past or whatnot? If there isn't, Julie Carson, how do you pronounce? I'm sorry.
Carson.
Is on, and why don't you go right into your presentation, implicit bias awareness training.
Okay. Oh, thank you very much. I think Pam, she has it up for me, if she can put it up for me. My name is Julie Carson. I'm a certified trainer, and I do several trainings regarding implicit bias, cultural competence, health literacy, trauma-informed care, and any other trainings that an agency might need. Okay, I'm just waiting for her to put it up. So this is the implicit bias training that I have done before, and I will be doing with the Batavia Police Department. If you can go on to the next one. Okay, so basically what I try to do when I teach the implicit bias training is to be able to define what implicit bias is and explain its function. You'll be introduced to your own implicit biases and understand the basic impacts of what implicit bias does, and some just small strategies, basic strategies to help mitigate that implicit bias in your work, being at the police agency, at the sheriff's office, at any type of agency that you might work for. You can go on to the next one. The good thing about the one thing you would have to know about the community that you work for, if you want to go to the next one, is knowing the demographics of your community. And according to the census.gov, our population in Genesee County is a little over 57,000. 92.9% of it's white. And as you can see, the other ones, you got 3.2% that's Black, 3.5% that's Hispanic. You got 4% that are veterans and 10% that's on disability. But the biggest thing that I came across is the people living in poverty or below poverty is almost 10%. People make it on media, per capita about $29,465 per year. And the average rent is $795 per month. So this just goes to show, the struggles that our community has, not only with income, but living in poverty, and also their rent payments as well. You can go to. So what the definition of implicit bias is the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner. And biases can be both favorable and unfavorable assessments, and they're activated involuntarily. Our brain is hardwired to take little bits and pieces, and that forms our biases. So we can have a favorable bias, which is basically something like our military. We have a favorable bias towards our military. We also have a favorable bias towards, sometimes the police officers. Nowadays, sometimes it's unfavorable, but we also have favorable biases towards teachers, doctors, and so forth. Other types of implicit bias is confirmation bias. This is when our brain tends to favor information that conforms to our existing beliefs. And so that basically means that we seek out information that confirms our biases. If we read something on Fox News or CNN or a certain newspaper, if somebody is pro-life or pro-choice or even pro-gun or anti-gun, they will seek out information that confirms those biases. We also have actor-observer biases, which we attribute our own actions to external causes, while everybody else, it's their own fault for having that happen to them. If you want to go on, Tim. So where do these come from? Our biases are developed over a lifetime. A lot of times it comes from experience, early childhood to adulthood. I can say that I grew up in the military family. My dad was in the military for 32 years. So my experiences living overseas, I lived overseas when the Berlin Wall came down. So those form my biases as well. Environmental, geographic, socio-political, people who have different viewpoints politically or where they live at. I would say in the city of Batavia, or someone that might live on State Street compared to someone who might live on a nicer area in Batavia. Education, it's formal or informal. Our education comes from formal when you go to school or you get educated that way. Informal means basically on the streets. That comes from smarts or, school smarts. And right now, this is the biggest thing right now is media, both social media and regular print media or regular media that's on TV. They dominate our narratives right now. I used this example before. Sometimes the news organizations get the most ignorant person that's out there and they'll put them on TV, and that causes our biases towards someone. During my trainings, we do a lot of interaction things as well. And for time's sake, and because I know the Buffalo Bills is playing later on today, we won't do this, but just, just for food for thought for you guys to think maybe later on, if you guys have an awareness of what you believe and why you believe it. That could be anything from your religious beliefs, your political beliefs, your education beliefs, or anything of that nature. Let me go to the next one. Okay, and just so you know that implicit bias does not equal racism. Everybody has some type of implicit bias. When it's applied to a group of individuals or people or anything like that, that becomes the foundation of racism. And implicit biases can be that primer for racist attitudes, behaviors, and policies with different agencies, with anything like that. You can go to the next one. Okay, and so this is when it becomes racism. Individual attitudes and actions that favor one group over another. Could be gender, could be race, could be religion, it could be economics. Someone who favors someone who has a better economic standing than somebody else. Institutional would be the policies and practices and procedures that advantage some and discriminate against others with or without the explicit intent. That usually is what we used to call redlining. If anybody understands what redlining was, that's institutional racism and structural based on the historical and present impact across all institutions. And that could be with police, that could be with doctors, that could be with mental health things. That's basically where we put laws in place to make someone else disadvantaged and can't do anything of that nature. You can go on to the next screen. So these are basically your next steps into mitigating implicit biases. If you can go to the next screen. You know, check your blind spot. I don't know why my things are like this, so I do apologize. Check your blind spot. We all have the implicit biases. Just acknowledge and accept that you do have some biases and do not, and it creates a blind spot. You can go on to the next one. Okay, so this, we can slow down on that. Some of my screens are messed up. I apologize for this. My screens were just a little bit messed up. A lot of it, implicit biases comes from language that we use. If you talk about an addict, what's the first thing that you guys think of? If somebody can speak on that.
Julie, it's Shelley. I think of someone who overdrinks.
Yep. So what we try to do is, instead of using addict, which gives a negative connotation sometimes, we try to use another word, is a substance use disorder, an individual with a substance use disorder. If you can go on, just, yep. So, because that creates a bias. If we use negative words like addict. The next one, this criminal, what's the first thing when you think of as a criminal? Somebody that's, you know, might have hurt somebody, you know, a deviant, someone that stole somebody. So now the new word in there, if you can go on, is a justice involved individual. I get a lot of pushback on this word, but you got to understand, a lot of times people who are involved in the justice system are not criminals, you know, right away. 4% of individuals that are involved in the justice system that are in jail, and Mr. Etter, because I think you can speak on this, 4% of the people are innocent in the United States. That's 90,000 Americans that are in jail right now or in prison that are innocent. And that's just the people that we know. And so that's why we try to use a different word for them. Special needs or handicapped individual, you can go down to the next one, individual with a disability, and the next one, rehab, you know, seeking recovery. So just if you try to change your language around to be more person-centered language, it helps mitigate that bias as well. You can go to the next one. And so what you have to do for your organization, and this can be any type of agency in our area, and to include the police agencies and everything. So what do you do? What type of services do you provide? Can you provide additional resources to help them out? So if we go to the sheriff's office, or we go to Batavia Police Department, what additional resources can they give to us or give to an individual to help them out? Can they send them to mental health, or like they work with JACASA right now, and getting an individual, they can come to them without getting in trouble, without being arrested, and get that so desired help that they need if they have a substance use disorder, if they come in and they say that they want help. So can you provide those additional services? Who do you serve? What is the community makeup? Are they living in poverty? Are they have a disability or mental health? And how will these services impact their daily lives? You know, if they can be able to see you at 5:30 at night when you think that you're already gone home, can they come see you at 7 o'clock in the morning? What type of things can you do to help with that? I don't know. And so, yep, you can go to the next one. I don't know where I'm at. So how can your organization mitigate this implicit biases in your services and between staff and in policies? is become culturally competent, make policy and procedural changes that will provide equity for the underserved population. That means taking a big look at what we're doing right now, is looking at your strategic plans. What changes can you make in your strategic plans? What are your strengths and what are your barriers and what are your weaknesses that need to be improved upon? Okay, you go to the next. And this is basically, I don't know why my computer is doing this. This is basically the definition of cultural competence, is the ability to understand and communicate effectively and interact with people across cultures. And it has the next screen will tell you culture is like an iceberg. You have the top part where you can see on the outside our clothes, our language, and so forth, and the things that we don't see. I use this example a lot. You can't tell that I'm part of a military family. That's my culture. I've also lived in poverty and below poverty where I didn't have that, basically a dollar to my name. And another thing too is that I do, this is kind of me opening up. You can't tell that I've had a mental illness as well. So though you got to think about that. Culture has an iceberg, which you can see on the outside, but there's a lot more layers that you can see on the underneath. To the next one. And this is basically the cultural competence model that, different agencies can use, being aware of your cultural awareness, cultural knowledge. Now, when I talk about cultural knowledge, you don't have to know everything about everything, because there's no way to know that. Even in my Polish culture, we all make pierogies a different way. So we're not going to know everything and anything about it. People do things a different way. Just being culturally sensitive. Are you open up to learning about someone's culture, understanding their barriers and why they're not getting the help that they're getting? Why are they constantly coming back to prison or constantly coming back to jail? Do they have a mental illness? Do they have a substance use disorder? And making your organization culturally competent. What adjustments do you have to make in your own personal life? What adjustments do you have to make at your agency and with the people that you work with to effectively operate your agency? To the next one. And this is who will be impacted. The community, they become more healthier, empowered, increased, I say client and consumer satisfaction, but that increased client and community satisfaction. The community becomes, and the staff becomes more knowledgeable, lower demand, and community becomes healthier, and there's cost reductions. And there's also a potential increase of revenue of up to 33%, which I know Matt likes, being the Genesee County manager, but there is a potential of increasing revenue of up to 33%. And that's about it. There's more to the implicit bias training. We do an implicit, we do a privilege walk. And we also do a couple of other things included in on this, but for time's sake, we just did this as an overview on this. So thank you. I don't know why my computer.
Well, thank you. Comments or questions from anyone?
Jerry Yater, I have a question. Julie, do you do the training or a training for the Sheriff's Department?
I will be, and Under Sheriff Mazur's here. I will be working with them in the future to be doing it, and also with the Batavia. I know this isn't part of that, but also the Batavia Police Department, and also Wyoming County Sheriff's Office as well.
Well, because I was just curious as to what the current status of this training is with the Sheriff's Department, and you haven't started any training with them. I don't know if they have any training before you came on board, but right now you haven't even started.
Yeah, we haven't started. We were in the talks with it with Matt, correct, Matt? And the problem is with the increase of COVID cases and everything like that, we have to reorganize and rethink how we're going to do this via Zoom and how many people, because of course everybody works different hours, and I'm available for those time frames and everything like that. We want to make sure that we get everybody trained, and it's not just the police officers, it's everybody in the sheriff's office, from the sheriff on, you know, through the people who greet you at the door. They need those implicit bias trainings as well. So that's what we're looking at. I did
So-
train Genesee Justice. So they're part of the sheriff's office. So I did train Genesee Justice.
I guess my question was, and then maybe it's more directed to the undersheriff, that there's no training, there hasn't been any training up until this point with the sheriff's department. And the second question for Julie is, do you know what your plan is? Is it a one-time thing once a year? Is it a recurring thing? Is it every, you know, how often is the training? Do you know what the plan's going to be?
I personally don't know what the plans will be, but I'm available anytime for the sheriff's office for the trainings, because things change all the time, you know, so I want to make sure that that's updated all the time for them. If I have to do it 2, 3, 4 times a year, I'll be more than happy to do it for them 2 or 3, 4 times a year, because things change all the time.
Thank you.
You're quite welcome. I hope
Julie,
that.
Julie, are you with an organization, or you're a private contractor? Or?
I used to be with Lake Plains Community Care Network, but due to COVID, right now my grant funding ended. So right now I'm doing this on a volunteer basis because of being on this committee.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So when you do it, what the various trainings you have done, what have you kind of, is there anything that really sticks out that you find?
I think what I have found is sometimes there's pushback, you know, because people people can be very defensive, and I'm not here to police someone's thoughts. That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to have people think outside the box, you know, think about other things than your world, you know. I lived all over the world, so I've seen many different things. I've seen things, people living in poverty to people living in mansions. And so you basically, what sticks out to me is just trying to have people think outside the box and understand that your lived experiences are different from my lived experiences, and that's okay. But understand where someone is trying to come from when they interact maybe with the police department, when they interact with mental health, when they interact with somebody at JACASA, for example. And just because it might be easy for us to just say, hey, look, just go do it, their lived experiences might tell them, hey, look, hold up, you know, I need to step back. I'm having a little bit of trouble understanding this, and just give them some space. You know, just understand other people's lived experiences is what I'm trying to say.
Yep. Other comments or questions?
Yeah, Julie, this is Laura Williams. Thank you very much for your presentation. In my exploration of implicit bias, I think what you said is exactly correct, where people don't understand even, you know, when we are looking for our own implicit biases, it's still very difficult to identify what they are. And I've seen some very specific and online tests, some electronic tests that test your implicit bias to race and gender and social status. Do you foresee using any of those for our law enforcement officials? I just feel like it would be beneficial, because even myself, you think, oh, I'm not biased. How could I possibly be biased? And then when you answer the questions and you look at your answers, you're like, oh, I see why that might be.
Yep, I do send out, I can send it out to everybody here, send it to Matt so they can all send it out. Is the Harvard implicit bias test. And the Harvard
I
implicit
actually,
bias
I
test
just sent
several
that
different
to,
ones. Yes. And they have
I
several,
just sent it to him.
oh, you did? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Several different tests that you can take. It's not only just, you know, a race-based one. It's also ones for religion. They have several different ones that you can take. I also do a kind of a privilege walk with them as well to understand, okay, look, do you have to, some of the questions are, are you afraid to walk at night by yourself? You know, take a step back. If you can walk, if you think you can walk alone at night, take a step forward. You know, things like that nature. Because it is with implicit biases, you know, culture is not just about race. You know, we got to understand that, you know, our biases are against women as well, can be against men. It could be against the way people live, if they live in subsidized housing, if people get food stamps. You know, when you see somebody swipe the card at Walmart or at Target, are you having a bias against them for swiping the card and they're buying something that you don't think that they should be buying? You know, so just, you know, those are biases across the board. Does someone have a bias against someone who's got a substance use disorder? You know, we saw a lot of it in the beginning when the methadone clinic opened up at Jacasa. A lot of people were against that. A lot of people are against the Narcan kits. As an Uber driver, has somebody that drove a lot of people, I keep a Narcan kit in my car and I wouldn't hesitate to use it for somebody. But a lot of people were against that because someone with a substance use disorder uses it over and over again. So that's another bias. So yes, thank you for that question.
Other questions?
I forwarded out that information that that Laura just emailed me, so the whole group.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Laura,
you.
for bringing that up.
Mm-hmm.
If Under Sheriff Mazur has anything about the training, he can answer that for you, Jerry.
Yes, good evening.
Yeah, thank you.
Yep, Jerry, our plan was, of course, with COVID, it makes it a little bit more difficult, but our plan here was to either use a Zoom training session at like an in-service session before each briefing, or if it's going to be a little bit longer, we could hold, you know, hour or 2 hour training sessions with Julie. So yes, we do have plans to have that training.
But at the current time, up to now, it's not been a part of your program per se. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct. Yes.
And when you do training, are you going to do it, as Julie mentioned, from the front office through the dispatchers, through the officers, detectives, the whole gambit? Is that
Yeah.
your-
Yes, I think it would be a benefit for the entire office.
Thank you.
So Brad, this is Shelley. Just a question. In our cultural hurdles, how much do you recognize language as a barrier or as a bias, please?
I think we recognize it more as a barrier. Getting that information, especially in an emergency situation, an emergency call, 911 situation. So yeah, I definitely see that as a barrier.
And are there tools that can help with the training to get past that, other than we know here on the farm, and maybe Barbie could chip in, or Leandro, Duolingo is an app that we use and we rely on it quite heavily. So I'm wondering if there are those kind of aids out there that could also help from the policing side of the equation that we're talking about here.
Yes, I know that we do have contacts in like the Alba area, the Byron area, that will assist us in any type of, translation that we need to assist us with an investigation. Usually they'll go through, usually what I have found in my experience, they'll contact them first and then they'll contact law enforcement.
Undersheriff, do you have anything in place for like a road stop, traffic stop where somebody doesn't speak English, a number that you can contact or an app that you can use, somehow you can communicate with the people?
Yeah, we do contract with, there is a language, it's a 1-800 number, so we can contact them. We can do it through dispatch. All deputies have cell phones in their patrol vehicles, so we can utilize that as a translation.
Jerry, for both Jerry and Shelley, I do a lot of health literacy trainings, and they, every agency, and with also the Genesee County Sheriff's Office, there is a 1-800 language line that they can contact and get an interpreter on the line, which is better than the app, because even though you can use the app in your situation, Shelley and Barbie, the app in an emergency situation or in an emergency medical situation does not always translate to the correct words or the correct way. So we discourage that to be used. We would rather have a live interpreter on the line for you, and those are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So like when you go into the court systems, of course, Jerry, you should you have the language line where they can point to whatever language that they have. So maybe, a suggestion could be if the sheriff's office can carry around a small language card, that's laminated with them, so that people can point to whatever language that they can speak. So when they call the language line, they can get that correct interpreter on the line.
Other comments?
Yeah, if I may add, that's a conversation that we're having with our mental health counselors and workers in the school districts as well, which in our discussion in the past few weeks has seen that it's very much related to law enforcement and the services that we can provide in the school districts too. So that's definitely a concern for our ability to provide, safe counseling in multiple languages to our citizens, I guess.
A question for Julie.
Yes.
Okay.
Julie, do you know if the language line has a PDF that you can put on your phone of the languages?
I can send that to Matt. I have a PDF that I can send to Matt.
Because I think that might be something also useful if the sheriff's department had for all the deputies for their cell phone. They can just, show the information from the cell phone as to what language they speak.
Anything else?
I would like to comment, please.
Sure.
This is Barbie Starwitz. In my past experience, when there's accidents or calls for any of the people that have a language barrier, most people on our farm have a friend that is bilingual that can translate English very well. So my experience at accident scenes, either myself, I would get one of my interpreters, or the person themselves have a person that they can translate to get the important information. Plus it helps when they're on the phone to calm the person down, to explain to them that what is going on, to relax them a little bit. So the language barrier is easier to relate. And also Elba, we have a translation card for accidents right away to ask in the Spanish language to make it easier.
Thank you. Other
Question.
comments?
Yes. Undersheriff, do you know if how the 911 dispatch center handles communication problems like that, whether it's language or, do they what resources do they have?
They utilize, they utilize the, they also utilize the 1-800 number. that we use for translation that Julie mentioned. It's they pretty much have any language needed. So we utilize that. The jail also, same thing. We utilize the 1-800 number.
All right, thank you.
Other questions?
A lot of these, interpreters, I just want to jump in real quick. A lot of these interpreters are certified interpreters. They take an extensive class, usually 40 to 80 hours to take these classes to be certified both in medical, in police situations and so forth, so that they can get the correct way. And they're also certified in a cultural competence type of way as well. So it's really well to use someone that is a certified interpreter. It's very important to use that language line.
Other comments, questions? I see we got some people who are not on Zoom. Is that correct, Matt? There's some people. I want to make sure I don't miss them.
There's actually no chats or anything.
Pardon me?
I don't see any chats.
Okay. So, all right. Well, thank you, Julie. Appreciate it very much. And we will move on. I guess the sheriff's not here tonight, so you're going to carry the ball tonight?
Yes, sir.
Oh, so it's all yours on community-based outreach.
Okay. So tonight, we'll be discussing the Sheriff's Office community-based outreach and conflict resolution. And I'll wait for our, there you go. Wait for. So our Sheriff's Office website, along with our general rules and orders, our rules and regulations, I'll start off with our mission statement. And that mission statement states to provide public service and protection to citizens of the community. The responsibilities associated with this mission are many, and they include to enforce all federal, state, and local laws, maintain peace and order within the county, protect property and personal safety, provide professional public safety dispatching services, along with animal control services, assist citizens in need, provide a safe and secure jail, ensuring proper care, custody, and treatment, supervision and discipline for all persons committed to the custody of the sheriff. We properly receive and execute any and all legal civil processes referred to the office of the sheriff. And our members of the sheriff's office are expected to carry out these responsibilities diligently, courteously, professionally, and to take pride in the service they provide. Our core values, we are accountable to the community for all that we do. We believe that honesty and integrity are cornerstones of character, and that we must live up to the high standards established by this office and the law enforcement profession. We believe that we must treat each other and the citizens we serve with the utmost respect, compassion, and dignity. We must change to meet challenges of the present and future, and we are dedicated to work towards a better, safer, and more prosperous community. We take pride in ourselves, our organization, and the people we serve. We believe every member of this office should be provided with the opportunities to reach personal and professional fulfillment. We strive to be a transparent agency, and we utilize a variety of methods to share our message with members of our community. Some of our community-based outreach programs, we're able to interact with members of the community on a consistent basis and obtain positive and valuable feedback on the services we provide. Deputies and staff seek ways to become part of the community in which they serve. Some of these efforts, we hold community-held events. We participate in career fairs. This gives us the opportunity to promote the sheriff's office and to meet our hiring needs. We participate in birthday parades. Birthday parades, this is something that kind of started out with COVID. Many of the children couldn't attend school, couldn't have birthday parties. So we were reached out by parents and organizers of these parades to lead the procession past their residence. We will lead that procession with our emergency lights on. And this also gave us the opportunity to provide traffic control so the event can be held in a safe manner. We also participate in holiday parades. You often see our honor guard leading several parades along with marked patrol cars. We provide Operation Safe Child. And what this is a program in the event that an individual's child disappears or becomes lost. They can expedite the dissemination of missing children information to police agencies and the public. We provide a photograph of the child's fingerprints. We also provide their date of birth, eye color, height, weight, hair color. This will expedite that information getting out to law enforcement agencies and the general public. We also participate in Project Lifesaver. This program assists citizens of our community that have impairments or disabilities. They're at a risk of becoming missing due to their impairment or disability. These individuals are provided a wristband, which has a transmitter built into the wristband that'll display a frequency code. So if this individual becomes lost, we deploy our deputies that are trained in this equipment. We have 2 receivers, and they can, it's similar to a beacon that'll give out or a sign or impact that it'll show on the transmitter. These transmitters work up to 2 miles away, so we're able to locate that individual. These individuals are, caregivers are trained on these wristbands, so they're provided with the overview of the program, how to self-check, how to change the batteries. We also provide child safety seat inspections. Deputies are certified and trained in the proper installation of car seats. We help to educate parents on how to properly transport their children safely. We also provide seats, car seats for individuals that meet those requirements. We do have those available in the case that they needed a new car seat. We also have 6 school resource officers throughout school districts within Genesee County. Not only do they provide a safe place to learn, but they also interact with the students. Students get to learn about law enforcement careers, social media safety, among other jobs law enforcement officer does. We also have the Teen Academy. The Teen Academy is a summer break program for students in high school. This is very similar to a mini police academy. Students get to have the opportunity to see demonstrations from the emergency response team, deputies from our canine. They get to review laws. They partake with investigators in processing crime scenes. They participate in defensive tactics along with physical training. In a controlled environment, they also participate in traffic stops. They tour the jail and also the dispatch center. So they get a real, for the week-long program, they get a look at what happens in the different programs at the sheriff's office. We also participate in the Genesee County Fair, Shop with a Cop, and Stuff the Cruiser. Both these programs are donations from the public for children in need. And we work with other organizations to get those donations to those children. Other support groups that we work with, the Continuum of Care. This program, we have quarterly meetings to assess any emergency sheltering that is needed within our community, both short-term and long-term care. Our opioid task force, these are meetings held bi-monthly, and we review statistically the number of overdoses in our community, what's impacting that. We speak to other law enforcement agencies surrounding counties on their efforts and their educational efforts. We also attend mental health support group programs. This gives us the opportunity to provide programs, relate those programs to the community when deputies are out in the field, provide information on what programs are available. We attend the neighborhood watch group meetings. This is something recently we were just actually contacted about from one of our communities in Genesee County, looking to have us attend one of their neighborhood watch groups. We have CRAZE, which is the Civilian Response to Active Shooter Event presentations. These are deputies that go out and give presentations on active shooters, how to deal with an active shooter or an active threat. We utilize our social media. We have a Facebook page along with Instagram page and our satellite substations. This allows us to have more of a presence in our community. We have a satellite office in Leroy, and we have a satellite office in the town of Darien. The deputies that are assigned to these satellite substations, they start their day off right from the satellite office. There's patrol cars there, and that gives us the opportunity to be in the community and to respond in a quicker fashion. Our webpage, our website contains more information that individuals can search. We have an overview on our webpage. We have the overview of the functions of the sheriff's office. We provide an underage drinking tip line. Bail payments can be made online. Civil payments can also be made online. You can access accident reports, FOIL record requests, and our background checks. Now, as far as the background checks right now, the only thing we provide is the information on the arrest or if an individual was incarcerated in our jail. So those are the only two things that we provide at this time. If an arrest was made by our agency or if a individual was incarcerated at the Genesee County Jail. Also on our website, we have the Drug Task Force tip line for individuals or citizens to report any suspicious drug activity. We have a 911 address verification, which is for new construction. We also have business owners. They can document or report emergency contacts, and this is for after hours when deputies respond to the business. We have an emergency contact. Animal shelter, they're for their hours of operation, information on adoptions. Community service and victim assistance. This resorts back to Genesee Justice, details their RUS program, victim services and assistance. We also have travel advisory and road closings. We also utilize the local media, and we also have our sex offender registry, where individuals can go online and enter a name and see if that individual is on the sex offender registry. As far as our conflict resolution, as I previously mentioned, we have the CRAZE, the Civilian Response to Active Shooter presentations. We have the DWI Impact Panel. This gives the opportunity for DWI offenders and victims to come together for a program where the offenders hear firsthand how a DWI crash impacted the lives of others. At times, there's 2 or 3 volunteers that speak to the audience about their experiences with a DWI crash. Dispute resolution. This is often seldom used. This is a resource that we have where there's really no criminal activity, but it's similar to like one that I can recall is the neighbor dispute, where we try and have someone mediate the issues between the 2 neighbors, so that stops law enforcement from being dispatched there on a routine basis. Our CIT team, our crisis intervention team, these are trained officers trained officers to recognize emotionally distressed individuals in a variety of situations in the community and also within our correctional facility. They're trained to ensure that safety of the community and the emotionally distressed individual. They facilitate the appropriate outcome for the emotionally distressed individual and any other assistance that is rendered. And they're in direct partnership with the Genesee County Mental Health. We also have the body camera program. This is a mandatory wear policy. Not only does this assist us with the prosecution of cases, but it also assists with personnel complaints, use of force review. The deputies capture the video when interacting with the public. And not only our deputies also are equipped with these body cameras, but our correctional officers too also have, they're equipped with body cameras to capture video throughout the correctional facility. Our emergency response team, this is our New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services accredited team. We partner right now with the Batavia Police Department, so it's a joint emergency response team. These are specially trained tactical officers. They're responsible for handling critical or high-risk situations. Their goal is to protect life and property to resolve these incidents in a safe manner. We also have deputies assigned to our hostage negotiation team. These deputies are trained and certified, and they're activated during critical incidents where team members work together to find peaceful solutions in situations where we have individuals that are armed, looking to harm themselves, or holding others against their will, or barricaded subjects. Any questions about our community-based outreach or conflict resolution?
Question? Comment?
Undersheriff, this is Shelley. So if you have a interested sheriff's deputy who would like to volunteer or be part of any one of these community help kind of sections of the policing, how do they get selected, chosen, or identify themselves as being a candidate for serving on one of these teams?
We post a memo, internal memo, on deputies that would be interested in these programs. So we solicit these deputies that are interested, and then we make our decisions from there, or make our selections from there.
So if you have a deputy that does not self-identify as wanting to serve, but you notice that they have some great core competencies that would lend themselves, do you also seek them out?
Yes, we do.
Thank you.
And there are some, as you mentioned, Shelley, there are some individuals that have that ability, especially as a hostage negotiator. You have to have that ability to communicate, be quick on your feet. And those are the individuals that we do seek out for that type of assignment.
And I would imagine that you would want them to have some experience, time, and a certain number of years of their experience, or a certain number of opportunities to experience, these difficult situations before they would be ready to go on their own, sort of.
Yes. Yeah, we do. That's one of the considerations. The hostage negotiation, the negotiator school is a 40-hour week-long school where they not only do classroom work, but there's also role playing. So they actually put them in situations similar to what they would see in the field.
Thank you, Undersheriff. I appreciate it.
Brad, just a question. Are there, under your operational procedures, other than obviously a traffic accident or a crime or something, where you have suggested that your deputies actually get out of the vehicle and, like walk into an area or anything of that nature, just to, they're out by the county park, they get out and they actually just kind of wander, or something of that nature. Is that anywhere in do you do that, or is there any procedure on that?
We definitely encourage that. We have a lot of deputies that take that upon themselves. Just recently, I was probably about over the summer, one of our deputies stopped out and actually there was a small group of kids on a basketball court, and either a passerby or somebody took a video of it. Just that deputy just interacting and speaking with those kids. So yeah, I think especially nowadays, our deputies realize that community interaction is so important, and they do get out, and we encourage that to get out into the community and build that relationship, that rapport.
I think that's critical, and I've seen it down here where they get out, like you're saying, they will pull into the park up here, and the kids are playing basketball or whatever. I think it's so critical. Thank you.
Yep, I agree.
Other comments or questions?
I'm just wondering about the foundation for the relationships that are being built with our young people with the school resource officers. Could you talk about, the layering of foundations for those relationships going forward into those students' lives?
Yeah, I think it's, as far as the school resource officers go, even with them and being in the school, building that rapport at a very early age with the students, and they have the opportunity, if that SRO has the ability to stay there for 5-10 years, that's basically the entire, good portion of that student's schooling. So they built that relationship with that deputy, and there's several examples of students that have gone to deputies for advice, how to handle certain situations. So yeah, I think that school resource officer is such an important part, especially nowadays, building that rapport with students starting at a very young age.
Do you have any programs specifically designed or, to try to address the senior citizens group? I mean, over, visiting a senior citizen center because of their level of, confidence, et cetera.
Yeah, in one of the previous programs that I mentioned, that continuum of care, our chief deputy does meet, I believe they're quarterly meetings with individuals from the Office of the Aging, I believe, are part of that continuum of care. So there is outreach there.
Thank you.
Under Sheriff, hi, this is Laura. This is Laura again. And I have a question, but I don't know that there even needs to be an answer to it if there's not an example. But I'm just amazed at all the community outreach. When you guys are sitting around, the table, is there ever any area of the community where you think, gosh, I just wish we had an in with this group of people or this particular area of our jurisdiction? Are there any blind spots to you that you wish you had a better outreach for? And like I said, there doesn't have to be an answer. I think you're doing a great job. I just was curious.
I think the one area that we could concentrate a little bit more effort is the Tonawanda Indian Reservation. I've had the opportunity to speak with several of their chiefs. And in fact, Lieutenant Dan Hollins of the State Police and myself are going to be setting up a lunch as soon as hopefully we can with COVID. We get a break here, but we have spoken about setting up a lunch meeting, inviting the chiefs from the reservation to get together and talk, first of all, meet each other and then discuss any issues or concerns that they have or how we can, better build that relationship. But I think anytime you have an opportunity to improve relations or build rapport with anyone within the community, I think that's a great opportunity.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Anything further before we have Brad move on? Okay, so let's go on then to problem-oriented policing. Brad?
Yep. Problem-oriented policing, we attempt to identify and analyze specific crime, traffic, or accident problems in locations and target resources towards solving these problems. One of the, our drug task force is responsible to respond to neighborhood drug concerns, narcotics investigations. We utilize confidential informants and the confidential tip line. Our drug task force right now, we have 2 members from the Genesee County Sheriff's Office and 1 member from the Batavia Police Department assigned to the drug task force. We also utilize neighborhood enforcement team details, which we refer to as net details. Prior to COVID, we were having net details approximately 1 time a month, sometimes twice a month. And we respond to these citizen complaints, increased patrols in known drug and criminal activity areas. We also have the PTS grant, which is the Police Safety Services Grant. This provides additional funding for additional patrols to try and curtail aggressive driving, distractive driving. We concentrate in school zones, school bus stops, and railroad crossings. We receive information from citizens in regards to traffic complaints. We try and target those areas to hopefully to reduce accidents. And we also utilize the Copper Patrol, or I'm sorry, the Copper Patrol. This is a detail where information coming in from citizen complaints about known criminal activity or suspected criminal activity will actually place a patrol right in the area. And whether they're out on foot patrol, but they're in a high visible area and they remain visible to discourage any type of that illegal activity. So those are some of the ways that we try to target our resources to solve some of those problems. And a lot of these problems are citizen generated from the community, whether they're tips from on the drug tip line, you know, tips that come in from about traffic complaints. So we utilize our resources to hopefully solve these problems.
Good. Thank you. Questions, comments? Brad, one of the things, I'm going to show my age here, and probably Gary's the only one that would be aware of. I see he's gone up. We don't hear much anymore about organized crime. What's the status of that as far as Genesee County is concerned in particular?
Yeah, we don't have a large, when we speak of organized crime, our investigations usually usually concern drug trafficking and individuals that relocate to our community for the sole purpose of selling illegal substances. So that's our primary responsibility. We do have vice. We do similar to vice operations. We undercover operations, but our primary right now is the narcotics.
Okay. Thank you. Comments? Any additional? Okay. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything further, comments, questions, feedbacks about the committee, where we're going and how we're getting this thing hopefully put together? I would appreciate any feedback I can get, and we start to formally. Okay. With that, our next meeting is 2 weeks from tonight, kind of a Christmas present, early Christmas present, the 21st, on hotspot policing, focus, deterrence, and crime prevention. Is that going to all be the Sheriff's Department personnel, those 3 presentations?
I believe so.
Okay. All right then. Well, thank you for everybody. Shelley, do you want to say something? Your light just flashed.
Well, I just want to remind folks that in this time of just higher spikes in our COVID positivity here in the county, make sure that you're taking good care of yourself and of your family. And also take advantage of our free COVID testing clinics that we are running on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the afternoons from 1 to 4 at the Fire Training Center. If you need a test, see us about a test, okay? We really are doing as much as we possibly can, given the resources that we've just received from the state to help ensure the good health of everyone here in this community. So thank you for that. I appreciate it, Bob.
Okay. I'm scheduled for 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Good. We'll see you there.
Yes. If I may just make a little aside for Laura, excuse me, she's not Laura. She just appeared, I can't hear. But on the bias, I was laughing at myself the other evening, thinking about that whole thing as I walked. And I walk almost every evening, either here or someplace else. And the one thing I thought to myself, you know, you really are biased against hoodies. I said this as I was walking up some back trails here in Bergen, about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, wearing a black hoodie. And I thought to myself, I mean, nobody knows my color, my race, my anything, because I'm all bundled up. And I thought to myself, that's about as classic as you can get as far as being, you know, biased against yourself. But your point is well taken, Julie.
Thank you very much for sharing that.
Okay. Well, thank you all. I appreciate you joining us, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night now.
Go Bills.